day two of the Foreign Interference Commission's public hearings essentially amounted to one long university-style lecture from three professors invited to testify and explain the legalities of governmental classification of documents and information and how public inquiries tend to work with respect to disputes over disclosure of said information.
The Foreign Interference Commission's mandate declares that the FIC's purpose is to examine and investigate interference from China, Russia, other countries, and other non-state actors in the context of the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. Kenny Chu, a former MP with the Conservative Party, was defeated in 2021 following a propaganda campaign targeting him in the Chinese language, which was said to be by conservative politicians as well as researchers, as reported by the Globe and Mail, to be organized by the Chinese Communist Party, which targeted Chu for his policies that the CCP deemed as hostile to its interests. Jenny Kwan, an MP from British Columbia, she's with the NDP. She says that she's been the target of campaigns of intimidation and coercion against her and launched by the CCP. Han Dong, a current MP formerly with the Liberal Party and now a so-called independent, was reported to have advised a senior Chinese diplomat in 2021 ahead of that year's federal election against the freeing of two Canadians, given that that release would have politically benefited the Conservative Party's fortunes in that forthcoming election.
The Foreign Interference Commission will likely examine information deemed classified by the federal government. Also, information obtained by the federal government via partner states in the Five Eyes apparatus. So there will likely be some disputes over public disclosure of such information and the procedures regarding these sorts of disputes, the legalities pertaining to how confidentiality is determined and challenged or changed was explained by these three professors, all of whom have academic and professional experience in a legal sense with respect to public commissions of inquiry. Professor Michael Nesbitt, one of the professors presenting today, warned that excessive claims of confidentiality, what he called overclaiming, risks undermining public trust in the federal government and its institutions, given that these excesses, claiming classification and confidentiality across the board were unjustified, will make people more suspicious. One of his peers, Professor Leah West, said that public trust, at least among diaspora communities, certain minority ethnicities living here in Canada, is right now at an all-time low as far as her assessment is concerned, given that the federal government has excessively claimed confidentiality in many instances and also not provided sufficient explanations for its own surveillance of their own communities. I was speaking earlier this morning with an observer in the hearing room who didn't want to do an interview with me. Maybe I'll speak to him sometime this week if I can change his mind. But he has some experience in observing the so-called intelligence community, as he described it. And he told me that bureaucrats who are authorized to make classifications of information within the intelligence community's channels are risk averse. That's how he put it. They sort of, if I can paraphrase, reflexively classify everything to the excess. So we'll see if this sort of tendency towards classification, if accurate, presents itself over the next week in events, whether we come to see information that was previously classified that should not have been, or at a minimum, information that was classified unjustifiably when weighed against the public interest in disclosure. The professors explained two broad categories of rationales, justifications used by the government to issue classifications of information. The first was to protect lives of individuals who would be put at risk if information was to be revealed or particular details disclosed. So this falls under the broad category of sources and methods. If there's some sort of informant, for example, his or her identity could put him or her at risk if to be disclosed publicly. Secondarily, the other category was more nebulous, national security interest. So there may be instances of information, data, details that, if disclosed publicly, would undermine Canada's national security or the national security of its allies. Dear Rebel News audience, if you value and appreciate these in-the-field reports, remember we need your support to continue this sort of journalism. Please visit protectourdemocracy.ca, chip in and contribute what you can, stay up to date with our ongoing coverage, and also sign our petition to get the federal government to remove these so-called Chinese police stations that are used as vehicles of surveillance and intimidation against Chinese citizens living in this country.